Today, I want to remind every woman here of a truth you might have forgotten. Strength doesn't mean having it all figured out or always being in control. Real strength is born in the moments when we feel uncertain, scared, or broken, yet choose to rise anyway. It's in how we keep going, not because we're fearless, but because we dare to face the fear head on. Strength is messy, it's imperfect, it's showing up when everything in you screams to hide. It's letting yourself be seen and heard, even when you feel unworthy of the spotlight. And here's the secret: it's not something you wait for or find. It's something you build. Brick by brick, moment by moment, with every choice you make to lean into your challenges instead of running from them. Vulnerability is often misunderstood. It's seen as a weakness, something to avoid or hide. We're taught to build walls, to guard ourselves, and to present an image of unwavering confidence to the world. But here's the truth: vulnerability is not weakness. In fact, it's the opposite. It's the birthplace of courage, creativity, connection, and strength. When we avoid vulnerability, we shut ourselves off from the very things that make us strong and whole. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff. Below is the unknown, a place filled with risks, challenges, and uncertainty. Vulnerability is the moment you choose to leap, even when your knees shake and your heart races. It's trusting that the parachute will open even though you can't see it yet. That leap takes more strength than staying safely on the edge ever could. When we embrace vulnerability, we open ourselves to the possibility of failure, but also to the possibility of profound growth. Strength is not about being unshakable. It's about allowing yourself to be moved and still standing firm in who you are. It's about acknowledging your fears and doubts, then choosing to take a step forward anyway. That's where the magic happens. That's where transformation begins. Think about the moments in your life when you felt truly strong. Were they times when everything was easy and comfortable? Or were they moments when you faced uncertainty, pain, or fear and chose to keep going? Perhaps it was starting over after a loss, standing up for what you believe in, or asking for help when it felt impossible. Each of these moments required vulnerability. They required you to step into the unknown without guarantees of success or safety. And yet, they shaped you into who you are today. There is a deep misconception that vulnerability is about oversharing or exposing yourself recklessly. But vulnerability is not about baring your soul to anyone and everyone. It's about being honest with yourself and allowing others to see the real you when it matters. It's about removing the mask and saying, "This is who I am. My flaws, my fears, my dreams, and my heart." It takes immense courage to do that. It takes strength to be authentic in a world that often rewards conformity and perfection. Vulnerability is also the foundation of connection. As women, we're often expected to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, to be the caregivers, the nurturers, and the problem solvers. But strength doesn't mean doing it all alone. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we give others permission to do the same. We create space for shared humanity, for empathy, and for understanding. We realize that we're not alone in our struggles, and that realization can be profoundly empowering. In our vulnerability, we find the courage to ask for what we need, to set boundaries, and to say no when something doesn't serve us. We stop trying to meet unrealistic expectations and start honoring our own truths. Vulnerability teaches us that it's okay to rest, to cry, and to admit that we're not okay. It teaches us that strength is not about enduring everything without breaking, but about finding the grace to rebuild when we do. Embracing vulnerability also fuels creativity and innovation. Think about the boldest ideas, the most inspiring art, or the groundbreaking movements that have shaped history. They all began with someone daring to be vulnerable, someone willing to risk rejection, criticism, or failure for the sake of something greater. When we embrace vulnerability, we open ourselves to possibility. We step outside the box of what's safe and familiar and into a world of untapped potential. Of course, vulnerability is not easy. It requires us to confront our fears of judgment, rejection, and inadequacy. It challenges us to let go of the need for certainty and control. But in doing so, it liberates us. It allows us to live authentically and wholeheartedly, unburdened by the weight of pretending to be something we're not. Strength born from vulnerability is resilient and enduring because it's rooted in truth. It's not about being invincible. It's about being real. It's about standing in your power, even when you feel small. It's about owning your story, even the messy parts, and knowing that they don't diminish your worth. They enhance it. Every time you choose vulnerability, you're choosing strength. You're choosing to face the world with an open heart, even when it's risky. You're choosing to show up fully, even when you're scared. And in doing so, you're not only transforming yourself, but you're also inspiring others to do the same. So let go of the notion that strength means never falling apart. Let go of the idea that you have to have it all together all the time. Real strength is in the cracks, the imperfections, and the moments when you choose to keep going despite the odds. It's in the courage to be seen, to be heard, and to be vulnerable. That's where your power lies. Even when you're inexperienced, even when you feel powerless. Courage is often misunderstood. Many people think it's reserved for grand acts of heroism, dramatic gestures, or fearless warriors who charge into battle. But real courage isn't always loud. It's not always bold or even visible. Courage is quieter and more intimate than that. It's the small, everyday decisions we make to stand in our truth when it's easier to hide. It's the act of showing up for ourselves, speaking our minds, and living authentically, even when it feels like the world is asking us to be someone else. Standing tall in your truth begins with knowing what your truth is. This might sound simple, but in a world filled with distractions, societal expectations, and constant noise, discovering your truth is an act of rebellion in itself. We're told who we should be from an early age, how we should behave, what we should value, and what we should strive for. These expectations can feel suffocating, and over time, they can drown out the voice within that tells us who we truly are. Courage begins the moment you decide to listen to that voice. It takes courage to sit with yourself, to reflect on your values, your dreams, and your boundaries. It takes courage to unlearn the stories you've been told about what you're supposed to be and replace them with stories that honor who you are. This process can be messy. It can be uncomfortable, but it's also liberating because it brings you back to yourself. When you know your truth, the next step is to stand tall in it. This is where courage meets action. Knowing who you are is one thing. Living as that person is another. Standing tall in your truth means making choices that align with your values, even when those choices are unpopular or inconvenient. It means saying no to what doesn't serve you, even when saying yes feels easier. It means owning your voice and using it, even when it shakes. There's a profound strength in living authentically, but there's also a risk. When you stand in your truth, you make yourself vulnerable. You open yourself up to criticism, rejection, and misunderstanding. It can feel safer to stay silent, to blend in, to avoid rocking the boat. But courage is not about avoiding fear. It's about walking through it. Humility is not a fear. It's about walking through it. Standing in your truth requires you to confront the fear of judgment. What will people think? Will they approve? Will they still like me? These questions can be paralyzing, but they're also distractions. The truth is, you can't control how others perceive you. You can't control their opinions or their reactions. What you can control is how you show up in the world. And when you choose to show up authentically, you give others permission to do the same. Courage is contagious. When you live your truth, you inspire those around you to live theirs. Your courage becomes a beacon, a reminder that it's okay to be real, to be flawed, and to be human. You create a ripple effect that reaches far beyond yourself. But standing tall in your truth isn't just about how you interact with the world. It's also about how you treat yourself. It's about having the courage to forgive yourself for past mistakes, to let go of shame, and to embrace your imperfections. It's about being honest with yourself about your needs and desires and honoring them without guilt or apology. It's about showing yourself the same compassion and grace that you so readily offer to others. Living authentically doesn't mean you won't feel fear. In fact, fear is often a sign that you're stepping into something meaningful. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the willingness to act in spite of it. It's acknowledging your fear and moving forward anyway, because you know that living a life aligned with your truth is worth it. There will be times when standing in your truth feels like standing in the eye of a storm. You may face resistance, both from others and from within yourself. Doubt may creep in. You may question whether it's worth it. In those moments, remember that courage is a practice. It's not something you summon once and have forever. It's a muscle you build, one choice at a time. Every time you choose to stand tall in your truth, you grow stronger. Every time you honor your values, your voice, and your worth, you reinforce your courage. It's not about being perfect or fearless. It's about showing up consistently, even when it's hard. You've got this. You've got limitless potential, and there's never been a better time than right now to get clear on your truth. Every time you honor your values, you will be courage. Every time you choose to stand tall in your truth, even when it's hard. Standing in your truth also means embracing the messiness of being human. It means recognizing that your truth may evolve over time. Who you are today may not be who you are a year from now, and that's okay. Courage is not about clinging to a fixed identity. It's about staying open to growth and transformation. It's about having the humility to admit when you've outgrown old beliefs and the strength to embrace new ones. As women, we're often taught to prioritize others' comfort over our own truth. We're encouraged to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, and to put others' needs before our own. Standing tall in your truth challenges these norms. It asks you to take up space, to assert your boundaries, and to claim your worth. This can feel radical, even revolutionary, but it's also necessary. Though your truth matters, your voice matters. Your life is too precious to be lived according to someone else's script. When you stand tall in your truth, you reclaim your power. You step into the fullness of who you are, unapologetically and unconditionally. Your truth is already waiting for you to unfold, like within you and within them. Courage is not a destination, it's a journey. There will be days when it feels easier to retreat, to shrink, to go along with the status quo. And that's okay. Courage is not about never wavering. It's about choosing to return to your truth, again and again. It's about reminding yourself that you are worthy of a life that feels authentic and fulfilling, even when it's challenging. So stand tall. Stand tall in your truth, even when your voice trembles. Stand tall in your truth, even when the ground beneath you feels unsteady. Stand tall in your truth, not because it's easy, but because it's who you are. And in doing so, you'll discover a strength that cannot be shaken, a strength rooted in authenticity, resilience, and unwavering courage. Imperfection is one of the most universal human experiences, yet it is one we are so often conditioned to resist or hide. We grow up in a world that glorifies flawlessness. We're inundated with images of perfect lives, perfect bodies, perfect careers, and perfect relationships. The message is clear. To be worthy, to be loved, to succeed, you must strive for perfection. But here's the truth that often goes unspoken. Perfection is not real, and it's not the measure of your value. Your imperfections are not obstacles to be overcome. They are opportunities to grow, learn, and connect on a deeper level. To turn imperfections into pathways for growth, the first step is to shift how you see them. Instead of viewing them as failures, weaknesses, or shortcomings, try to see them as invitations. Each imperfection, each mistake, each so-called flaw holds within it the potential to teach you something valuable. They challenge you to confront your fears, to ask hard questions, and to explore parts of yourself that you might otherwise ignore. Imperfections remind us of our humanity. They humble us and ground us in the reality that we are all works in progress. They strip away the illusion of control and perfectionism and remind us that life is a process, not a destination. In embracing your imperfections, you begin to embrace yourself as you are, not as the world tells you to be. The growth that comes from imperfection often begins with vulnerability. It takes courage to admit when you don't have all the answers, when you've made a mistake, or when you're struggling. Society may tell you that vulnerability is a weakness, but in reality, it is one of the greatest acts of strength. When you allow yourself to be vulnerable, you create space for growth. You open yourself to learning from others, to seeking support, and to discovering solutions you might not have found on your own. Imperfections also teach us about resilience. Life rarely goes according to plan, and we often stumble along the way. But it's in the stumbling, in the falling, and getting back up that we discover just how strong we are. Resilience isn't about never failing. It's about how you respond to failure. It's about using each setback as an opportunity to grow stronger, wiser, and more compassionate with yourself and others. In many ways, imperfection is the birthplace of creativity and innovation. Think about the great breakthroughs in science, art, and human history. Rarely do they come from flawless execution or perfectly laid plans. More often, they emerge from trial and error, from mistakes and missteps that reveal new possibilities. Your imperfections are not barriers to success. They are the catalyst for discovering what is possible. Embracing your imperfections doesn't mean settling for less or giving up on growth. It means recognizing that growth comes from the process of trying, failing, and trying again. It's about finding beauty in the messiness of becoming, rather than striving for an unattainable ideal of having arrived. Growth is not linear. It's a winding path filled with detours, obstacles, and surprises. Each twist and turn, each imperfect moment, shapes you in ways you might not see at the time, but will come to appreciate later. When you allow yourself to be imperfect, you also give others permission to do the same. One of the most profound ways to connect with others is through shared vulnerability. When you're willing to admit your struggles, your doubts, and your fears, you create a space where others feel safe to do the same. This connection is not built on the illusion of perfection, but on the reality of being human. It's in our shared imperfections that we find empathy, understanding, and community. Perfectionism, on the other hand, isolates us. It creates walls of comparison and judgment that keep us disconnected from ourselves and others. When we strive for perfection, we place our worth on an unattainable pedestal, always just out of reach. We become trapped in a cycle of self-criticism and fear, afraid to take risks or try new things because we might fail. But when we let go of the need to be perfect, we free ourselves to take chances, to be bold, and to live authentically. Turning imperfections into pathways for growth also means being kind to yourself. Self-compassion is essential on this journey. When you stumble, instead of beating yourself up, offer yourself the same grace you would give to a friend. Acknowledge that growth is hard and that making mistakes is part of the process. Celebrate the effort you're putting in, even if the results aren't perfect. It's important to remember that imperfection is not a flaw in your character. It's a feature of your humanity. The world does not need you to be perfect. It needs you to be real. It needs your unique voice, your unique perspective, and your unique journey. Your imperfections are what make you relatable, approachable, and inspiring. They are what allow others to see themselves in you and to believe that they too are enough. Imperfections can also be powerful teachers of humility and gratitude. They remind us that we are not meant to have all the answers, that we are part of a larger tapestry of life where everyone is learning and growing in their own way. They help us appreciate the small victories, the progress we make each day, and the beauty of impermanence. To turn imperfections into pathways for growth, it's essential to surround yourself with people who see your value beyond your flaws. Seek out relationships and communities that celebrate authenticity, that encourage you to take risks, and that support you in your journey of growth. These connections can provide the safety and encouragement you need to explore your imperfections without fear of judgment. Hey, who's to say you're not perfect? Your imperfections and dysfunctions to progress you in your journey of growth in your journey, your heart. Ultimately, turning imperfections into pathways for growth is about embracing the fullness of life. It's about leaning into the messiness, the uncertainty, and the challenges with an open heart and a willingness to learn. It's about trusting that every experience, no matter how difficult or imperfect, is shaping you into the person you are meant to be. Growth doesn't come from hiding your imperfections. It comes from owning them, learning from them, and using them as stepping stones to a more authentic and fulfilling life. Your imperfections are not something to be ashamed of. They are gifts that make you who you are. Embrace them and watch how they transform your journey. Strength is often depicted as an individual pursuit, a solitary journey of overcoming challenges and achieving greatness. But true strength doesn't exist in isolation. It's cultivated through connection, nurtured by the bonds we form with others, and deepened by the stories we share and hear. As human beings, we are wired for connection. It is through our relationships and shared experiences that we find resilience, courage, and the strength to face life's uncertainties. Building strength through connection begins with acknowledging that we are not meant to carry life's burdens alone. The myth of self-sufficiency tells us that we must be independent, self-reliant, and capable of handling everything on our own. While independence is important, it can become isolating when we allow it to overshadow our need for community. Strength is not about doing it all alone. It's about recognizing when you need support and allowing others to be there for you. Connection starts with vulnerability. When we let down our guard and allow others to see us as we truly are, we open the door to genuine relationships. This can be challenging in a world that often equates vulnerability with weakness. It takes courage to share your fears, your struggles, and your imperfections with others. But in doing so, you create opportunities for empathy and understanding. Shared stories are one of the most powerful tools for building connection. When you share your story, whether it's a tale of triumph, heartbreak, or everyday life, you create a bridge between yourself and others. Stories have the unique ability to transcend differences, break down barriers, and foster a sense of belonging. They remind us of our shared humanity and our collective experiences. Your story doesn't have to be perfect or extraordinary to be meaningful. Sometimes it's the raw, unpolished moments that resonate the most. When you share your authentic self, you give others permission to do the same. You create a safe space where honesty is valued over perfection and where connection flourishes. In listening to others' stories, we also find strength. Hearing about someone else's journey can inspire us, give us perspective, and remind us of our own resilience. When we learn about the challenges others have faced and overcome, we realize that we too are capable of rising above our struggles. Shared stories become a source of collective wisdom, offering insights and lessons that we might not have discovered on our own. Connection and shared stories also have the power to heal. When you've been hurt or when life feels overwhelming, sharing your experiences with someone who listens without judgment can be incredibly freeing. It allows you to process your emotions, gain clarity, and feel seen and understood. In the presence of someone who truly hears you, you begin to rebuild your sense of self and find the strength to move forward. Building strength through connection is not limited to one-on-one relationships. It extends to communities and networks of support. Whether it's a group of friends, a professional network, or a shared interest community, these connections provide a sense of belonging and a reminder that you are part of something larger than yourself. Communities amplify strength by pooling resources, ideas, and encouragement. They remind you that even in your toughest moments, you are not alone. Connection also helps us navigate the challenges of comparison. In a world dominated by curated images and social media highlights, it's easy to fall into the trap of comparing yourself to others. But genuine connection reminds us that everyone has their struggles, even if they're not visible. When you share your story with someone and they respond with their own, you realize that the perfect lives you see from the outside are rarely as flawless as they seem. This understanding fosters compassion for yourself and for others, and strengthens your ability to face life's ups and downs. Strength through connection is not about always agreeing or seeing eye to eye. It's about valuing the diversity of experiences and perspectives that others bring. When you engage with people who challenge your assumptions and broaden your horizons, you grow stronger and more adaptable. These connections teach you to approach life with curiosity and humility, qualities that enhance resilience and foster personal growth. To build strength through connection, it's important to prioritize meaningful relationships. Quality matters more than quantity. A few deep, authentic connections can provide far more strength and support than a wide circle of acquaintances. Invest time and energy in nurturing these relationships and be intentional about creating spaces where trust and openness can thrive. Connection also requires reciprocity. It's not just about receiving support, but also about giving it. When you show up for others, whether by listening, offering help, or simply being present, you contribute to their strength as well as your own. Acts of kindness and generosity create a cycle of connection that benefits everyone involved. Shared stories and connections are particularly vital during times of change or adversity. When the ground beneath you feels unsteady, leaning on others can provide stability and reassurance. Hearing how others have navigated similar challenges can offer hope and practical guidance. And when you share your own story, you may discover that your struggles have equipped you to help someone else in ways you never imagined. Connection also deepens our sense of purpose. When you're connected to others, you're reminded that your actions have an impact beyond yourself. Your contributions, whether through your work, your relationships, or your community, matter. This sense of purpose fuels resilience and strengthens your resolve to keep going, even when the path is difficult. Attention to nature matters for our mental health as well. Attention to landscapes is important for our mental health as well as our physical health. Building strength through connection and shared stories is an ongoing process. It requires intention, effort, and a willingness to be vulnerable. It asks you to prioritize relationships, to listen deeply, and to share authentically. But the rewards are immeasurable. Connection enriches your life, strengthens your spirit, and reminds you that you are never truly alone. In the end, strength is not about how much you can carry on your own. It's about how you can lean into the collective power of connection and let others help you when you need it. It's about finding strength in the stories that unite us and in the bonds that remind us of our shared humanity. When we build strength through connection, we create a world where everyone has the support and encouragement they need to thrive. In the grand tapestry of life, the threads of connection and shared stories are what give it its strength, texture, and beauty. When we lean into these bonds, we discover that our strength is not just our own. It is a shared reservoir built through empathy, vulnerability, and mutual support. True strength emerges not from isolating ourselves, but from weaving our lives together with others, finding courage in their stories, and offering our own as a source of light. By embracing connection, we transcend the illusion of separateness and step into a space where growth, healing, and resilience thrive. We come to understand that our imperfections, struggles, and triumphs are not barriers, but bridges, pathways to deeper understanding, compassion, and unity. Through shared stories, we not only inspire and empower one another, but also create a collective legacy of courage and humanity that transcends the individual. As you move forward, remember that strength lies not in perfection or self-reliance, but in the relationships you nurture, the stories you share, and the community you build. In choosing connection, you are choosing to honor the most profound truth of all, that we are better, braver, and stronger together.